Welcome once again to Against the Spread, where we here at Sportsnet pick your NFL games for you against the spread. And we're doing a pretty good job, not to brag. Well, really, Gilo is doing a really good job. He's just a game under 10 games above 500. And we had a weird tie, which was kind of unnecessary, which we'll talk about. And we're only in week 3, when really early in the season, it's tough to really know much. So shout out to you, Gilo, who's doing a great job picking these games.
Yeah, thanks, man. I wish I could say that I have some type of strategy that's really paying off, but a lot of it, like I said last week, it's kind of just gut pick, and then you need a little bit of luck. That's the ball has to help us in these situations, and it has here for sure.
Well, part of the strategy that goes into picking games in this new world that we now live in 2020 is you have to be part NFL prognosticator, part epidemiologist or infectious disease specialist. So you can let us know if this game's even going to happen and what happens to the line as we move closer to whenever they're going to kick off. And if you are unfamiliar, I'm talking about Tennessee hosting Pittsburgh. The line is Pittsburgh favored by 1.5. Now, again, that may move because Tennessee is missing like 7 people, team members, support staff, because of positive COVID-19 tests. So they can't even practice right now, never mind getting set for a football game. We knew this was going to be baked into having a season where you're not in a bubble, but it's come relatively early. How do you even make a call on where you want to go with this game, assuming it's played and assuming the number stays close to where it is? Tennessee started when the line opened, you should know, as 2.5-point favorites. They've now moved to 1.5-point dogs.
Yeah, it's really tough to say because so many factors obviously come into this. Who are the players, first of all, who are now testing positive for COVID-19? When it almost it's definitely a secondary point, but that impacts whether you'd pick Tennessee based on who the player would be. But obviously, first and foremost, it's the safety that matters, and the games don't matter as long as the NFL is taking care of everybody and making sure that this entire process is safe. But from a picking standpoint, I mean, like I said, it's tough to know without knowing who these players are, because it's unlikely that these players will be able to play on Sunday. And then we don't know how the situation will unfold in the coming days or when they'll even play, if they do, which is a bummer, because this is probably one of the games of the week, right? This are 2 3-0 teams. Somebody's going to be 4-0 unless there's a tie. And these teams were really fun. I was going to go with the Steelers here. I actually really like how they match up against the Titans. I think the Titans, which are obviously a run-heavy team, are coming up against a Steelers team that is the best so far through 3 weeks against the run. And so if the Titans aren't able to run, they're going to obviously depend a lot on Tannehill to throw the ball, which he's done well. But the Steelers are also a team that rushes the passer better than everybody at this point in time. And so it could be a rough day for Tannehill if these teams are able to take the field this week. And so that, coupled with the speed that the Steelers have on offense against a kind of weak Titans secondary so far this year, was what had me leaning Pittsburgh when I picked this game.
Yeah, I was going to pick Tennessee as well, especially I was going to pick Pittsburgh as well, especially when Tennessee came out favored by 2.5 points. I think, quite frankly, Pittsburgh's a better team. We are remembering Tennessee because of that great playoff run that they had. But we forget, throughout the regular season, they were a 9-win football team. Like, they were pretty average.
Yeah.
And if you made your bet on Pittsburgh before the line moved after the news broke, well, good for you. But even with Pittsburgh as a 1.5-point favorite, I still like them at that number. And quite frankly, we don't know who the players in question are for Tennessee. But I do know the players that took the field defensively have not played well in the last 2 weeks. They've given up 450 plus yards over the last 2 weeks. And the calling card for this team was defense. Was good special teams play, which in week 1 was an issue. It has righted itself, but it was also the ability to run the ball. And as you mentioned, they may not be able to run it as well against Pittsburgh. Certainly, the defense has not been playing up to snuff. So I like Pittsburgh in this game. So a game that we're pretty sure is going to happen relatively soon at this point. Denver going to the New York Jets. Not the elaborate primetime game, but I mean, I guess we should get used to Thursday night games being bad because that seems to be the tradition. The Jets are 3-point underdogs at home against the Broncos. Who do you like?
I don't like either of them, if I'm being completely honest. This is a tough one. I saw earlier this morning the Broncos have $54 million worth of contracts on injured reserve right now. That's how banged up they are. That's a remarkable number, and I don't think we even know who's going to be starting at quarterback for this team on Thursday night. And on the flip side, the Jets are just a mess. You know, like I said that Adam Gase is the coach on the hot seat, and I think if he loses this game on national TV to a Broncos team that's this banged up, he's going to lose his job, and it'll be Friday morning. So bet on that, but also bet on the Broncos. I think on the field injuries are obviously devastating, but the off the field stuff that the Jets are dealing with, they're just not showing up at all, and they're dealing with a fair amount of injuries as well. So I just can't pick the Jets. That's what it comes down to for me. As bad as this matchup is, as bad as it could be on the field, I just can't pick the Jets.
Nor can I, and I really, really tried. I looked at these two teams. They're both bad, so give me the team that's getting some points in the Jets. I mean, like Driscoll is not an inspiring choice at quarterback, but quite frankly, neither is Sam Darnold, who's throwing some terrible, terrible interceptions. And as bad as the Jets have been, and we knew they were going to be pretty bad, and they've, somehow been even worse, they're still 0-3 against the spread. So forget about their actual record. They're still finding ways to be worse than we thought they would be. And so to me, the Jets are a stay away. I don't think you should stream them in terms of a survivor pick this week, but I do think you should feel comfortable betting with Denver to win by 3 points or more. Baltimore was supposed to be in the game of the week, in week 3 in the Monday Nighter. Was a bit of a dud. It was disappointing. I suspect this one will be a bit of a dud as well, as it will probably be a bounce back game. But will it be that so much so that Baltimore can clear the 13 points with which they're favored over the Washington football team in Washington?
I hate picking spreads like this. Kind of just like last week when the Jets were 10.5 point underdogs. This spread is super scary because lots of stuff can happen to get Washington within 13 points of the Ravens. And before that game last night, one where the Ravens just didn't show up for the most part, I felt that the Ravens could cover this spread. And I feel even more strongly about that after that loss, just because that Ravens team is going to want to come back out and really put a beat down on a team that is capable of being beat down. The fact of the matter is Washington's offense is the worst that there is. They turn the ball over a lot. They did so against Cleveland on the weekend. They can't pass the ball. They have a little bit of a run game. And to make matters even worse, probably their best player on defense already, Chase Young, got hurt over the weekend. And so the pressure that they're going to be able to put on to Lamar, which we saw a lot of on Monday night from the Chiefs, they got after Lamar and it was clearly frustrating him. I don't know that Washington's going to be able to do that as effectively as they would have if Chase Young was going to be 100%. But mainly, I think it comes down to just the Ravens wanting to come out and show, the rest of the league that Monday was an outlier rather than, something we'll see from this team on a regular basis.
Yeah, there's a reason why the Chiefs have been kryptonite for Lamar and have, given him 3 losses in his young career. Because when you have athletic defensive ends who, don't cheat, don't have to because they're athletic, but also can make him run sideways and sideline to sideline and not get north, he's a completely different player and a completely different passer. Now, theoretically, Washington is one of the few teams who could actually do that. But Chase Young, as you mentioned, is hurt. And you mentioned Washington's offense. I'm not really sure how many possessions they're going to get in this game because of the ability for Baltimore to run the ball consistently and control the clock. And so that's why I agree. I am normally really hesitant to get, on the side of a spread this big, but it's one of those things where you try and get too cute and say, oh yeah, Washington's going to cover 13. And then, 5 minutes into the game, it's 14-0 Baltimore, and you hate yourself.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
I think the Ravens should be able to cover. What do we do with this next game? The New Orleans Saints are 4.5-point favorites over the Detroit Lions. Detroit is terrible, but they did pick up a surprise win against the Cardinals, an offense that's really explosive. And the Saints offense, specifically without Michael Thomas, has not been explosive. And so when you look at the logos, you say New Orleans is great value, but based on the way they've played over the last 2 weeks, do you still think they are at 4.5?
I'll be honest, I thought first, with the image of Taysom Hill fumbling that ball late in Sunday night to steal that win for the Packers, I thought about taking the Lions here, but I just can't envision this Saints team, which obviously has its struggles with Michael Thomas out, and the defense has been surprisingly leaky so far. But I just can't see them losing 3 in a row, and also losing that third one in a row to these Lions, who, outside of what was undoubtedly a good win on the road against Arizona, have blown fourth quarter leads before this, and just aren't really the team that some thought they were going to be. And so I think, kind of like the Ravens, the Saints are going to come out on a mission, and this is a team that they should take care of. There are tiers of teams in the NFL, and the Saints are in 1 or 2 above the Lions, and this is a game that they should take care of with relative ease. I mean, no game is easy, but I think they should come out here and they should win by a touchdown. So I'm going to take them.
You know what? I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to take Detroit. And again, this might be one that I'm kicking myself for when it's 21-0 going into the second quarter for the Saints. But I just look at the teams and the way they're playing specifically. New Orleans, you mentioned their defense has been leaky. They've just been outright bad after I thought they were going to be one of the best defenses in the league. On paper, certainly they are, and they looked pretty good week 1 against Tom Brady, but they've looked terrible since. In their last 17 defensive drives, they forced 1 punt. Like that's
wow.
The Lions, like on paper, they've got a complement of weird mixed parts at running back, but they've got a nice group of receivers, a very good emerging tight end, and Matt Stafford can sling it when he's healthy. So on the flip side, you have Drew Brees, who is averaging 4 yards per attempt. I do think that the Lions can keep up with a Saints offense that is entirely different when Michael Thomas isn't playing. And so I'm going to pick the Lions with the 4.5-point spread. Again, I could be outthinking it, but I do think Detroit keeps that one close.
I mean, Galladay being back is a huge game changer, I think, for the Lions, and it's going to make, much like Thomas does for the Saints, it makes this offense click. So I don't think it's a crazy pick given what we've seen from these teams recently. It's just tough to see, how does this I had the Saints in the Super Bowl. How is this team going to lose 3 in a row in September and October? It's crazy to me.
Well, they've got, the public behind them, and evidently the public thinks I'm crazy because 71% of the public right now betting with the Saints. In division, another team that's really favored by the public anyways is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who 66% of the public thinks they can cover a 7.5-point spread over the Chargers. This line, again, started at 4.5, and it's now moved to 7.5. Is that movement too much for you to give you some pause?
It definitely gave me pause. Anything bigger than a touchdown usually does give me some pause, especially when, the Chargers are a team that have some good pieces on both sides of the ball. We saw that against the Chiefs when the defense was able to hold Pat Mahomes to one of his worst halves that we've seen. But for the Bucs, not only do I like what I've seen from Tom Brady in the offense, especially with Mike Evans and the weapons that they have on offense, but it's the defense, a defense that I think is almost criminally underrated in the NFL right now, that not only creates turnovers, but gets sacks. I think it's kind of a nightmare situation for Justin Herbert, who will be playing in his third career game against a team that really is only getting better and better. So not only do I think that the offense will have a good game, I think the defense will dictate how the Chargers do. The Bucs defense will dictate that, and I think the Bucs end up covering by double digits.
I'm with the Bucs as well. The Godwin hamstring injury, concerns me a bit, and Brady really starting to look comfortable on that offense. So you don't want to see any disruption in terms of his playmakers, even though evidently Andy Isabella is looking like a number one receiver for him. Justin Herbert has looked really comfortable, almost had a game-winning drive this past week, but I do think Tom Terrific will get up for a game against a highly touted rookie quarterback and have a vintage performance, and that's why I think 7.5 is not too many points for me. The Colts going to Chicago. The undefeated Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears with a new quarterback, and a new quarterback for, it seems like, the foreseeable future in Nick Foles. They are dogs actually at home by 2.5 points to Indy. Who do you like in this one?
I think it's undoubtedly that the Bears are going to get a boost from Nick Foles. I think it's almost impossible that you wouldn't when you compare the type of player Mitchell Trubisky is to the type of player Nick Foles is. But as an Eagles fan, I've seen the good and bad of Foles, and oftentimes when Foles comes up against stifling defenses like this, he can struggle a bit, and so I think that's why I'm going to take the Colts, because the Colts, the offense isn't really clicking yet. I mean, they have a really good run game and the offensive line is great, but the defense has been stifling so far. They create turnovers. DeForest Buckner is really becoming a force. And so I'm going to take the Colts. I think the Bears are going to suffer their first loss. And I think it's going to be an up and down starting debut for Foles in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you've seen really a situation where a team has started this well but felt the need to switch quarterbacks since like Kyle Orton and Rex Grossman, oddly enough, on the same team.
The Bears.
But
the Bears definitely have an issue there.
Yeah, this is where we are with the Bears, still searching for a quarterback since they made their Super Bowl run but couldn't beat Peyton Manning and the Colts, and I don't necessarily think they're going to beat the Colts now with the new quarterback. I mean, just look at yes, they're undefeated, but look who they beat. They beat the Lions, they beat the Giants, and they beat the Falcons, who basically once again beat themselves, who we'll talk about later. But the 3-0 record doesn't necessarily surprise me, because they played three teams that are basically about the same, the Falcons and the Lions and the Giants, who should be worse. So I do think the Colts can cover a 2.5 point spread. Even though that line has moved from 1 to 2.5, even if it moves to 3.5 or 4, I would still be on the Colts in this game. Although I do acknowledge they will be better with Nick Foles.
For sure.
Arizona, the team that I was pumping so hard, just disappoints me. Kyler Murray, maybe with the move of the season, but in a loss. They're still favored, however, 3.5 points to Carolina, the other team that I was crushing on how bad their defense has been and how anemic their offense was going to be without Christian McCaffrey. They go ahead and get a win. Who do you like in this game where Arizona, early start at 1 o'clock Eastern, goes to Carolina?
Yeah, that just as you were kind of talking about there, this is kind of a head scratcher given their results last weekend, something we weren't suspecting. The 3 interceptions from Kyler Murray in particular were definitely perplexing. But the Panthers, I still believe that they're a team that's going to struggle. I still believe that defense is going to give up points. And against someone like Kyler Murray that can burn you through the air and on the ground, against DeAndre Hopkins, I just feel like the offense is going to be too much. Especially for Carolina, who had plenty of chances to score touchdowns on the weekend, but ended up only getting one and having to settle for field goals 5 times. So when it comes down to the offense, I think the Cardinals can outscore the Panthers, and so I'm going to go with the road favorites here. Lots of road favorites actually this week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one as well. I do think it'll be a bounce back game for the Cardinals. And if you, I try not to overreact too much in a 1 week sample size unless it's something like a rash of injuries. And if you asked me, about this game a week ago, I would love this number for the Cardinals.
For sure.
So I'm going to be a little bit more consistent and stay with the Cardinals, and even though they didn't look good last Sunday. Jacksonville underdogs going to Cincinnati. The Bengals are favorites at home, -3. Where are you leaning on this one?
This is an interesting one too, because I think if we had looked at this last week, I would have taken the Jaguars and I wouldn't even have thought twice about it. But I think on Thursday night, we may have seen a little bit more of what this Jaguars team actually is. The first couple weeks, they had leaned so much on Gardner Minshew being perfect at quarterback, and when he isn't, we saw how much they struggled. The lack of DJ Chark obviously played a huge role in that offense clicking, but I think the bigger concern is probably the defense, which got absolutely torched by Fitzmagic. I mean, the best teams have been torched by Fitzmagic, but it was particularly tough to watch on Thursday night. And I think the way that Joe Burrow is playing, I mean, he's throwing 50 times a game. There's an opportunity here for Burrow to take advantage of that and be able to put up some points on this Jaguars defense. And I'm unsure whether the Jaguars offense can keep up. So I'm going to go with the first win for Joe Burrow, who's played really well despite not earning that W yet.
Yeah, Joe Burrow has never lost 3 straight games. Mind you, he's obviously never before played in the NFL.
Or for the Bengals.
Right, or for the Bengals. But I do think it is a Bengals team that gives him the benefit of some great skill position players to play with. And I see that skills room watching tape of what the Dolphins did offensively with not the same level of talent, and say, well, yeah, that should be the low water mark for us. So I think there's a lot of points put up in this game. It will be a fun one to watch. Or watch via the Red Zone channel, but because I wouldn't sit through 3 or 4 hours of this. but I do think I would feel comfortable putting money on the Bengals as 3-point favorites. So Joe Burrow gets his first win, I suspect, as an NFL starter. Minnesota and Houston have quarterbacks who have won their fair share of games, but certainly need a little bit more help and protection from the lines in front of them. The line in this game is Houston 3.5-point favorites at home. Who do you like in this one? The teams that we talked being peripheral playoff contenders, and they both started 0-3. The math just doesn't really work itself out for you to start 0-4 and make a playoff run. Whose playoff aspirations end in the first month of the season?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you have to think that whoever loses this game is done. And that, in my opinion, makes it one of the best games of the week. This is going to be like a fun game to watch. And like on the weekend, Justin Jefferson, the rookie, had 175 yards and a touchdown. Dalvin Cook had a career day, and the Vikings still found a way to lose this game. And for me, that comes down to the quarterback play. Unfortunately, Kirk Cousins just isn't good enough. And obviously the defense is going to struggle. And so that's why I'm going to take Deshaun Watson and the Texans. I think Deshaun Watson and the Texans have the ability to torch this defense. And then on the defensive side of the ball for Houston, obviously have the capability of getting after the quarterback. So I'm going to, despite them burning me last week, take the Texans again, because I said this last week, I couldn't see them going 0-3, but I can't see them going 0-4, and I think Watson's going to put on a show.
I think the Texans are going to burn you again, because Watson might be able to put on a show, but he can't do it from his back. 5 sacks again last week. That offense was shut out in the second half, and at least Minnesota gave me some things that I feel good about moving forward. The run games, as you mentioned, Jefferson stepping up and filling that void that Diggs obviously has left, as he's made a real impact for Buffalo. And so I do think Minnesota wins this one, and you are hating Bill O'Brien and the Texans once again. And I do think, if Bill O'Brien hears the rumblings of Adam Gase being the first coach fired, he's like, wait, don't forget about me. I want to be in that conversation with Dan Quinn. And so I think they might go. I think they might go 0-4, and it might be lights out for them in the AFC South.
Yeah, that would be shocking if Bill O'Brien is out. Him being the head coach and the GM, that would just be like just like, what was the point? I don't know. That would be a devastating turn of events for the Texans.
So many moves the Texans have made, and my thought process was, what was the point?
The whole time.
2 first-round picks for Laramie Tunsil. The Miami Dolphins might be drafting real early in the draft thanks to the Texans. Getting the corpse of David Johnson for DeAndre Hopkins, like 1A, 1B, 1C top receiver in the league, like just because you didn't want to pay him what he's worth because he's really good. Yeah, there's lots of what was the point going on with the Houston Texans in my mind.
True.
An organization that is moving in the right direction is the Seattle Seahawks. Another impressive performance to start the season, 3-0 in a very competitive division in the AFC West. They're 6.5-point favorites against the Miami Dolphins. 2 quarterbacks that, offensively, their play callers are literally letting them cook in Fitzmagic, and maybe even Fitzmagic might want to tone it down a notch. Just like trying to, run down the field and run over people like he's a running back. and Russell, who, again, put on a display outside of, Mahomes. I'm not really sure who, from a degree of difficulty standpoint, is throwing better football. Like, I suppose Aaron Rodgers is in that conversation.
For sure.
But in terms of this game, where are you leaning in terms of Seattle being 6.5-point favorites over the Dolphins?
This is an interesting one because I think what we saw from Fitzpatrick, he can do again. And I think he could do it again against a Seattle defense that has struggled a bit. Dak Prescott had a huge career passing game against them on Sunday, but still ended up losing, and they lost by more than 6.5. And I think the Cowboys are a much better team than this Dolphins team is. And so despite, Fitzpatrick maybe being able to find some success against this Dolphins team, there's no way I see him being able to keep up with Russell Wilson the way that he's playing right now. And the Seattle offense is just so explosive. They can beat you any number of ways. I think the Chris Carson injury is obviously a tough one, but I think it's the passing game that really fuels this Seahawks team right now, which is something I never thought I would say. But here we are, and I think that they can definitely win this game by a touchdown.
Yeah, in years past, I'd be a little bit more concerned about the Carson injury, but again, we are in the era where they are letting Russ cook. And they are throwing to run and not running to throw. And so I think Wilson has another big day and add to his MVP campaign. I like Seattle by more than 6.5. Pittsburgh. I forgot we did Pittsburgh in Tennessee. So let's move to the aforementioned Cowboys, who you claimed was better than the Dolphins. I'm not really sure how much that's true. Certainly they're too deep and more talented. But they might be the dumbest team in football. And I say that being a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, that's an important disclaimer.
Yeah, but a team that, over the last 2 or 3 years that may give them a run for their money would be the Cleveland Browns. Again, their roster is stacked, but they make a lot of dumb decisions to beat themselves. So I guess somebody has to win this game, or we could
maybe they'll tie. Just watch the Eagles tie the Bengals. So who knows?
But if they do tie, that'll be a win for people who put money on the Browns, because the Cowboys are favored by 4.5. Where are you leaning?
I think this comes down to the passing game for me, and it's pretty clear that the passing game is the Cowboys' strength, and it's the only way that they're going to be able to hang around in games, and that's not the way that the Cleveland Browns are going to want to play, especially with Baker Mayfield not being that type of player. The Browns want to be able to lean on the run game, lean on Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, move the ball and control the clock. And if this turns into a shootout, which I imagine it's going to, because that's what these Cowboys games have been, I don't think that Baker Mayfield's going to be able to keep up with Dak Prescott. and they don't have a good enough defense to slow down the Cowboys. So I'm going to take the Cowboys. I think they can win this game, and I think they can win it outright instead of it being, like a 3-pointer, just because I don't know how Cleveland's offense can keep up.
I'm going to take the Browns, and part of it maybe is just, some residual history. Odell Beckham Jr., when he's in the division with the Giants, routinely destroyed the Cowboys. I mean, the one, play of all plays, remember, that really had Odell kind of jump on the national stage, him kind of reaching back and making that amazing catch, was against the Cowboys. And now he gets to go back into the stadium. He's had a lot of success. And really, when I just think of, Odell and Jarvis Landry watching tape of what Metcalf and Lockett did to the Cowboys secondary, and then they will go back a week and they look at what not even really Julio Jones, what Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage did to the Cowboys. They're like, yeah, I mean, we should do the same, if not worse. So I do think the Browns could win this one outright. So I definitely think I'll take them with 4.5 points to spare.
Just 1 point on that. I mean, we should be able to see the Browns do that every week, but I can't think of one time that we've seen with that trio them dominate a passing game. I would love to be able to say that, yeah, they'll be able to do what the Falcons did 2 weeks ago or what Metcalf and Lockett did, but we've literally never seen the Browns do it. And so until I see that, there's no way that I can't envision it if it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I vaguely remember them having a massive, I want to say, Monday nighter.
Against the Jets?
Yeah, it wasn't against the Jets. I think it was. Odell was wearing a watch, which actually doesn't narrow it down that much. But,
true.
But that was the Jets.
That's the reason that I just can't. It's tough for me to pick the Browns. I get it because it's such a juicy thought, like the fact that Odell could burn the Cowboys, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, it's just on the flip side, the Cowboys have had dominant offensive performances, and it has led to very little success. It's led to being an average team at the end of the day, around 500, 8-8-ish every year, and losing a bunch of close games. So again, these two teams in a way find ways to underperform, and basically someone has to win. Unless, as you say, they tie. But that being the case, then I'll take the point in the 4.5 Cleveland. New York, the other bad football team. I wonder if you just made a team called like the Metropolitans and you put both rosters together, how good of a team that would be. I quite frankly, I don't even think it would still be that good. It'd be choosing from one group of bad players with another group of bad players. The Giants are going to a team with some really good players on both sides of the ball, and the Los Angeles Rams, who are again a big spread 13-point favorites. This started at 9, it's now at 13. Too many points?
I'm gonna break my rule again, and I'm gonna take the Rams. It definitely is too many points, but I again can't see how the Giants are going to keep up. They were just destroyed by a 49ers team that didn't have half of its starters. And the Rams not only have all of their starters, but are playing at a really high level. We saw what they're able to do offensively in a quick period of time against the Bills. And yes, the defense struggled in that game against Buffalo, but they also were able to pretty much limit Buffalo in the second half. So I think this Rams team is a playoff team. This Giants team is a team competing for the number 1 overall pick. And so the Rams at home against a bad team, I'll take 13. I want to say reluctantly, but it's not even really reluctantly.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Rams win this one going away. And I think even though they lost, they were impressive because I think the team they played was pretty good. And that's the Buffalo Bills, who play the Raiders, who have looked pretty good. Bills are 3-point favorites. Where are you leaning this one?
If this was any bigger of a spread, I might second guess myself. Like if this was bigger than a field goal, I think that I may lean with Vegas. But Buffalo, right now they have the best offense in the AFC, and we just watched, what Mahomes did on Monday night, and the Bills still have better stats. I mean, I'm not saying that they're better than the Chiefs, but statistically they do. And the Raiders, they looked good at home against the Saints, but as we said earlier, who are the Saints? Don't really know, but we kind of know who this Bills team is. I would like to see better defense from the Bills. They haven't had as good of a defense as they had in the last 2 seasons, but I think the offense is going to be able to take care of a Raiders team that's dealing with some injuries and is probably more of a fringe playoff team than they are a contender in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Ramsey called Josh Allen trash earlier in his career. Well, Josh Allen now got 10 TDs and 1 INT. He's playing really smart. Him taking care of the football is why their offense has really done a good job, and I think that's enough to beat Las Vegas. New England going against a really good offense in the Kansas City Chiefs, who had a great display on Monday night. Bill Belichick, do you think he has the answers to slow down that offense?
That's a really good question. I mean, that's the biggest question coming into this game for sure. It's funny. I thought last night, midway through that game, watching Mahomes throw another ridiculous touchdown pass, like, why do I always pick against the Chiefs? I don't get why I do it. But I'm going to do it again because I do think Bill Belichick will have some answers. And I think of all the games, he would never say this publicly, but I think of all the games this season, this is the one they're going to show out for, right? Like, this is the one the Patriots want to win. They want to show they're still not only a contender, but an AFC number 1 seed contender. And I think they're going to find some answers to slow down the Chiefs. I don't necessarily think that they're going to win, but I think they're going to have some answers to what we saw on Monday night. And I think that they'll be able to keep it within a touchdown. They've done that all year. The games have been close or they've won outright. And I'm not ready to say that they can't do that in this game just yet.
I'm with you, actually. I mean, the Patriots have done a really good job for running the football, which you have to do against the Chiefs to keep Mahomes off the field. 200 yards rushing in 2 of the first 3 games. They had none in 2019, so that rushing attack with Cam Newton much better. And they lead the league in turnovers. And one thing you can't do against that team is give them extra possessions in a short field. So there's a recipe, not just what they could do defensively, but playing complementary football that I think will have New England keeping that game pretty close. Philly at San Francisco. 2 teams ravaged with injuries, 2 teams with an opposite record. But where are you leaning in this one? As the Niners are 7-point favorites after the line opened at 3.5.
Yeah, like last week when the Eagles were 6-point favorites, it's just really tough for me to see a way in which the Eagles are going to stay in this game. I think these 2 teams are perfect examples of how good coaching can alter injury situations. What we're seeing from Kyle Shanahan is great coaching, a system that works, players who are ready to play in it. And then on the other side, we see Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz, who are just not ready. They're just not prepared. They don't have good relationships with the players who have now come in, and the offense is really struggling. I think the Eagles' defense is fine, but it's so painful to watch that offense. It's so slow, and they just can't get yards against a 49ers team that's going to be ready to come every game. I'm going to take the Niners, and I think it's going to be bigger than 7.
Yeah, this is Philly's worst start since Doug Peterson was actually playing quarterback. Kyle Shanahan is calling plays where, like, their offense is so good, Kyle Shanahan might be able to play quarterback.
Exactly.
And they'd be okay because you just have to reverse pivot and hand the ball off, and they're running to pick up first downs when they're 30 yards away, like it's high school football. And I do think, again, the Niners with a great culture and despite the injuries will win against a Philly team that's really struggling. And not only will they win, they'll cover. Will the Packers cover 7.5 points against Atlanta, who somehow found a way to blow another big lead? They've blown 2 15-point leads in the first 3 weeks of the season. They're the first team to do that in the same series period, never mind in back-to-back weeks. Who do you like in this one?
I legitimately feel like Dan Quinn is probably fighting for his job in this game, but I don't think he's going to be able to win it. What I do think, though, is that they're going to be able to keep up with the Packers' offense. I think the one thing we can say for sure about the Falcons is that they can score points, and they can score them in bunches. And I know this Packers team is really good, but I just think that the Falcons are going to continue to deal. I think the injury to Julio Jones could change that. If he's able to come back for this game, I think I would bank on the Falcons 99 times out of 100 to keep it within 7.5. And it's that half that really, hits it home for me. I love the Packers. I think they're probably one of the top 3 teams in the NFC, but the Falcons could put up points in bunches, and the spread's just a bit too big for me.
Yeah, I think they might be the best team in the NFC. So far, the most balanced. And Atlanta, might be the worst. I mean, like, they play really good football, but they've in their history, they're 144-3 when they've been up 16 points in the fourth quarter. Well, 2 of those 3 have come in the last 2 weeks. So even if they played well early with Aaron Rodgers, the guy who loves to come back on the other sideline, they're just never going to feel comfortable. And Rodgers has talked about, you mentioned Quinn and his coaching job. Rodgers has talked about the fact that him and Matt LaFleur are on the same page in terms of play calling. And so I do think no matter if Atlanta plays well early, I see this one getting away from them and it being a comfortable win for the Packers, because like mentally the Falcons are playing themselves, never mind the opposition, and the opposition just happens to be a team that's rolling right now. That's why the Packers are also my survivor pick this week.
Interesting. I think I'm going to go with the Rams against the Giants. While I may be a little reluctant to take that 13-point spread, I'm not reluctant to say that the Rams are going to beat a bad Giants team. So give me LA.
Nice. I love it. We've done a good job for you so far. So do a good job for us. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. We enjoyed doing it. Thank you for watching once again, and have fun watching the games on Sunday.